And today I'm making a simple guide on how to use this Python manager, which is basically a custom program developed by this guy here, Swar. So from Swar Patel from Cleveland, so he's American, that has developed this Python manager that helps for chia plotting. So first and foremost is this I was inspired to do this guide by this video by Baros Nowaki, which is I couldn't really understand the language that we were speaking in this video. It's by European. Maybe he's a Pole. He's Polish. I'm not too sure. I don't think it's Russian. But basically, he made this tutorial video first, and I actually did watch through his tutorial video, and I realized that there wasn't an English version, so I wanted to do an English version for it. So in simple terms, chia, that means in order to farm chia, you first need to plot the so-called the storage spaces. It's still going through sort of like a proof of work thingy where you have to do use your computer as a proof of work system to plot the spaces, and then you store the spaces into hard disks, and then you farm from those stored spaces. So what this manager does is to help out to simplify the plotting process. So before that, and you see that this is the O interface. This is the graphical user interface. So your graphical user interface can be open, and at the same time, this Python manager is actually running in the background. So I'll probably be doing a multi-part guide on how to install and how to use this Swar Chia Plot Manager, so to say. Okay, and so just to explain some of the benefits of this plot manager, okay, by expanding it doesn't go bigger, is that you can see the processes and of like this is the name of my job, the PID number, that means that process number, the time that it starts, so you can very easily monitor the timing that every plot starts, and the elapsed time, that means how long has it been since the plot has started, and the phase times, that means this is probably phase 1 took the phase times is phase 3. I believe this should be phase 1. So phase 1 took 2 hours and 10 minutes. 2 hours, 10 minutes. So because both of these jobs actually ran at the same time. And then phase 2 took 1 hour and 30 minutes. So phase 1 took 2 hours 33. Phase 2 took 1 hour 32. And this is their progress. And their file size that they are taking up in my temp storage. And you can monitor your temp file storage status as well. So you can see the percentage. This percentage is the percentage that is available. Okay, let me rephrase that. So this is the percentage that's filled. Yeah, my bad. So I probably edit that out, maybe. So this, you can see that this is the percentage here displays the amount that has been filled. So my temp T drive, which is my SSD that I'm plotting to, that I'm using as a temp drive to plot to, is 45% full. So this 45% full. And my temp2 drive, which is like a second temporary drive, or what people like to call it a staging drive, is 66% full, because this temp2 drive is actually my C drive, which is my boot drive, where I store my games and programs and such. So it's 66% full, and my destination drive is my E drive, which is only has 7.2 terabyte, is only currently 12% full. You can monitor CPU usage and the RAM usage as well, which is pretty useful. So you can see that 72% out of my 32 gigabyte RAMs is actually being utilized. And if you are running this plot manager 24/7, that means every day without switching off your computer, you can see your plots completed yesterday and plots completed today and so on. So it's a good way to keep track of your plotting progress. So this is, in contrast, a lot better than our traditional graphical user interface plotter, where I can't really start another one here, but you can actually see that from most, I mean, if you're plotting chart, you can actually see that all you can see is a progress bar, and you have to go into each individual so to say the plot details, and it has a very long log file where you just scroll up and down in order to check the status. So it's kind of troublesome. It's not as monitor. It's not as user friendly for you to monitor all your plots compared to this one simple screen, and you can monitor the progress of all your plots from here. Okay, so to get this up and running, it's needs some work, and okay, let's go through it. So first and foremost, I'm going to provide the links to how to get this plot manager, and you can get it from GitHub. So GitHub is it's a website that people upload their freeware, their open source software to. So anyone can look at the source code, and they can audit the source code to see whether there's any malware or any viruses inside to make sure that it is not malicious. So GitHub is a really good website. So it's on GitHub. You can search for user Swar, SWAR, and Swar Chia Plot Manager, and you can find this here. So you want to get the file, right? So let's see. Download. Okay, so first and foremost, you want to download the entire file. You want to download as a zip, right? So I already have it here. So this is my, so it's here. So once extracted, you can extract your zip file. Once extracted, it will be something like this, right? So you have the relevant files here. And once you have extracted it, it is recommended that you copy this whole folder into the user folder that you have your chia-blockchain at. So let me demonstrate that. Let's go to File Explorer. Okay, so normally your chia-blockchain is stored under your C drive under users, right? And I store it under my username. So this is my computer username folder, and you will see this .chia folder. So if you go into this, you will see your wallet's files, your plotter log files. So your plotter log files are all stored here, for example. Okay, so you'll want to extract it to this folder. And you can do an extraction direct into that folder, or what we would like to do is copy and paste. So you can just copy from your downloads folder and copy it into here. So I'm not going to replace this because I'm currently running the plot manager. So if I replace the files, I'll probably get errors. So yeah, so you can paste it into this folder, place the entire folder here. Okay, so this is the part. There's one part of the installation done, and the second part is that you actually need Python, right? So it displays here. You can read through the GitHub of yeah, and so on, the explanations. You have some FAQs. Okay, so and so on. So as it says here, installation is straightforward, and first you will need Python. So let's go to Python, python.org. So Python, and you will need to download their installer. Go to download the latest Python 3.945. If you do have a number of files here, so you scroll down and they'll have a few. So for Mac, for Windows, this is the embedded package, and there's a source release as well. We will recommend, if you're using Windows, we will recommend you to, if you're using Windows 10 especially, to download the Windows installer 24-bit. So just click on this and this, okay. So I already have the file. I'm going to replace it. I'll replace it, and it's downloaded. Okay. So after this, you will need to install Python. So let's double click on the installer, modify, repair, uninstall. So I already have Python installed. So I'll just click modify, but in your case, if it's a fresh install, just click install and just leave all this ticks on. This launcher doesn't, I think it's not really required, right? And you'll want to custom, so you can go to customize and have a custom install location and so on, and install it. This might not be a good idea because I'm currently running Let's see whether it affects. Okay, that's good. It doesn't affect. That's good, that's good. Okay, so that's yep, Python installed. And once you have installed Python, you will see that, let's go back to the GitHub. There are certain instructions for installing this. It's quite wordy. So basically you have installed Python. You have to open either command prompt, power or PowerShell terminal. And this is for Windows to go into the main library folder. For Linux as well, I believe I'm not a Linux user, so I'm not entirely sure. So you probably will need to open a similar thing, such as a PowerShell or something, and the commands are just slightly different. So first, let's go and open a command prompt. Okay, so let's do command prompt and just type in the Windows. You can type CMD. I like to run it as administrator. Okay, so once you have a command prompt running, you want to go into the main library folder of your Chia Plot Manager, of the Swar Chia Plot Manager, right? So earlier we have our folder there. Let's go to this, right? So one way you can do is just click on the address bar on top, just right click copy, or you can just press Ctrl+C, and you will need to do cd space the address of your folder. So what cd does is it will go into that specific directory. So you have to press cd space, then paste the address of your folder, and you will go into that folder. And let's follow the instructions here. So this is optional, but we would recommend that you follow this as well. That means even though it says optional, it's highly recommended that you follow it. So create a virtual environment for Python. So once you're in that folder, just copy, you can simply copy this instruction, just paste Python space -m space venv space venv, right? So to clarify, here it says the second venv, which is this one, can be renamed to whatever you want. So I can rename it to Charlie, for example. I can rename it to my name, or Simple Invest if I want to. But he just prefers to keep it as venv because it's standard, because it's not really that important. So just copy and paste this instruction, Python space -m space venv space venv, and press enter. Okay, so I believe I encountered the error because if you see here, if I were to follow the second instruction and press enter from inputting this command, Python space -m, I get an error in this case because I'm currently running the Python manager. So hence it doesn't give me permission to access it, which is fine. But in your case, if you're installing for the first time, you shouldn't encounter this error. Okay, so once you have managed to run through that command and there's no issues with that, even if you face an error, you can try moving on to the next command, which is, if you're using Windows, would be to use this to activate the virtual environment by using this instruction. If you're using Linux, we'll be using this instruction or this instruction for Linux users. So Linux will be probably if you're using Ubuntu, which is a more recommended software to run Chia Plot Manager because many users say it's 10% faster. Okay, so in this case, we're gonna paste this command, which is venv --scripts --activate, and press enter. So you know that this is successful when you have this venv in brackets in the beginning here. So you can see that we're still in the folder, in the Chia Plot Manager folder, and we have this bracket venv. That means our virtual environment is activated. So once it is activated, the virtual environment is activated, you need to install the required modules. So just copy this instruction, pip install -r requirements.txt. So we're gonna try that. Okay, so you can see that for me, my messages here says requirement already satisfied because I've already previously installed everything. So if it's your first time running, you wouldn't see these messages. You instead see that it will be installation successful. So basically you see a whole bunch of text that is installed successfully. And next, following up, you need to copy config.yaml.default and rename it as config.yaml. So this is here. That means you go back to your folder where you have stored your Swar Chia Plot Manager, and you can see this config.yaml.default. You can right click and open with, I would recommend Notepad because it's easy to edit in Notepad. And you will see the whole bunch of details here. So basically this is your configuration file. You will be configuring all the details to exactly what you want your plot manager to. So these are all the settings for a plot manager, in other words. So you have to configure these settings for your plot manager before you can run it. And I'll probably have another video on the settings because it goes into quite a lot of detail. So maybe let's show you from configuring from the default file. Yep. Okay, so let's configure from the default file. So let's open up config.yml.default. The most important thing, first one, is the location of your chia CLI, that means command line interface executable. Okay, so the thing for this configuration file is that anything that has this hash tag, that means this hash sign in front of it, it is considered in comments and it will not be run as a configuration. So in order to get your char location, the most important thing is you put your cursor at the beginning of char location and press enter. You need to have a line of space between this Linux 2 example and your char location. So you have to have this space here. If you do not have this space, you will later encounter an error whereby the configuration file cannot locate your char command line interface executable. So this is where we need to copy and paste our folder address for our command line interface. So where is our command line interface? Let's say, okay, so let's go back up. So let's come from the start. Normally, our command line interface for the chia plotter will be under your Windows drive. That means in my case will be C drive. Go to users. Take note this is for Windows 10. And you can go to your, that means the folder that you are currently using. That means the user account that you're currently using, logging onto in Windows 10. And it is actually not in this folder, it is actually in AppData. So you need to go to AppData Local. And you have to look for chia-blockchain. You see that there's a chia.exe here, but do not select this. This is not the address that we want because for chia, the executable, there's a graphical GUI executable, graphical user interface executable, which is this with the capital C. And there's another one, which is the command line interface executable, which is chia with the small c. So instead, we have to go to app dash the version number. So I'm using 1.1.4. So go into that folder. And you will see that there's a capital C again, chia.exe. So this again is GUI executable. So you want to look for the CLI. So it's actually under resources from here. Go into app.asar.unpacked, daemon folder. And if you scroll down, you will see this chia.exe with a small c. Instead of capital C, is small c. So this is the command line interface executable for the chia blockchain plotter and farming software. Okay, so we have what we want, and this is what we want: the address of our command line interface executable. So you can highlight, so you can just click on the top bar here, or select everything, select copy, and go back to our config file. Make sure there's a space between the semicolons and paste it. All right. Then so you have the child location. That is the most important thing. All right. So these are the other more important settings. So this is the name of your job. That means in this case, they have a default name of Micron, which means that if we were to go to our manager here, it will appear here. So Micron will appear here instead of SSD plot 1. So in my case, I just like to indicate maybe SSD plot A, for example, right? So maximum number of plots, I would suggest to leave it as 999. So that means with every one run, so max plots in this case means with every one run of your command, this plotter manager, how many maximum jobs is going to execute in that one run. So for example, if you leave your computer on for 365 days and you've only ran your plot manager once, is going to execute up to 999 jobs within the 365 days, for example. Okay. So just leave it as 999 because most of the time you're probably going to shut down your computer before you hit this max plot number. In case if you're plotting for somebody else, all you will need is their farmer public key and their pool public key. So take note that if you're someone on the site that you are going to be buying plotting services, never ever disclose I think it's 24 or 12 word mnemonic code, which is your private keys. Never ever disclose your private keys because by disclosing your private keys, that's how a hacker or somebody else can gain access to your wallet and drain all your cryptocurrency. So in this case, if you're plotting for somebody else or if you're asking somebody else to plot for you, all you need is just to have your farmer public key and your pool public key here. So now the important things are your temporary directory, temp2 directory, and your destination directory. So you can see that they have some default settings here, but obviously it's nowhere near what I want. So let's open up another folder. Okay, so in my case, my temp folder is this. I name my temp folder T, and this is my NVMe SSD that I'm plotting to. So this is my folder. So I'm going to highlight the top bar and the address bar here, copy that, and I'm going to highlight this and paste. Take note to leave a space between the semicolon. Yep. Then we have our temporary 2 directory. So the temp2 directory is also commonly known as the staging drive in this community. So in this case, what it does is that if your temp1 directory is being filled up, the excess data can be directed to the temporary 2 directory. Or the temp2 directory can also work as a staging drive whereby once your plots has passed, I believe, stage 4, then they are at the stage whereby they are being written to your destination directory. So in this case, your staging drive, if you have your temp2 directory here, after stage 4, the file will be written to your temporary 2 directory first. And from your temp2 directory, the software will later write it to your destination directory. So why is this advisable is because usually for our destination directory, we are running slower hard disks. That means spinning hard disk that's high in capacity but slow in read and write speeds. So typically, a lot of users have noticed that for stage 4, just to write the files over to, let's say, 100 gigabyte plot file over to their hard disk, it takes anywhere from maybe 8 to 12 minutes. But if they could save out on this 8 to 12 minutes, they can actually start the next plot faster on their temporary directory. So in this case, what we will suggest is if you have another SSD or if let's say your operating software, my OS is installed on an SSD as well, and you have some free space there, it would be good to set this SSD as the staging drive, because from this temporary directory, which is one SSD, to the second SSD is going to be a lot faster than 8 to 12 minutes, probably maybe 1 minute, maybe 2 minutes max, right? So from there, 2 minutes after it is written into this temporary directory, which I will put it as my C drive, for example. Let's see. So I have my C drive here, and I'm going to put it as my chia. Whoa, where's my temporary directory? I can't find it. All right, it's here. So I'm going to put it as my plot staging folder here. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to put it as my C drive, and I just call it my plot staging folder. I'm going to paste it here. So in this case, what happens is that once my plot has passed stage 4, it will write itself to my C drive first, which is another SSD. So it's probably going to be just 1 to 2 minutes before it totally completes the transfer into my C drive. And once it's completed the transfer, my temp directory is free to start another new plot. And since it's starting another new plot, once it has finished the transfer from my C drive, it will start the transfer to my destination directory, which is, in this case, I put it under my E drive, and I put it here. So highlight, I'm going to copy this, right? And I'm going to paste the directory here. So this is my destination directory, which is my final directory as well. So from C drive, it will be transferred to the final directory, which is probably going to take about any time from 8 to 12 minutes. But this 8 to 12 minutes doesn't eat into the time that it takes to start a new plot. So basically, every plot will start about 8 to 12 minutes faster because of using this technique. So it's slightly more efficient. So this is highly recommended. As long as you have another smaller SSD that has at least enough space to store at least one plot, which is like 100 to 200 gigabytes. Yep. Okay. So those will be the main settings for temp2 and destination directory. And these are the size. That means this is the K size. By default, 32-bit fill. So true. The number of threads for plotting, usually we don't need that much. I'll just set it to 2. Buckets, leave it as 1 to 8. Memory buffer, this one is set as 5,000, but normally you can set it as 5,000 if you want, but I prefer to set it close to the recommended values with 3,500, 4,000. Okay, and max concurrent, that means what is the maximum number of concurrent plots that your plotter will run? That means in this case, what's the maximum number of concurrent plots that your plotter can run? So this you might want to observe this with the amount of the size of your temporary drive. So for example, my temp drive is, when fully empty, is 1.82 terabytes. And if each plot takes up about, normally, even though it says 100 gigabytes, if you notice, for example here, the temporary space required is about 240 gigs. So you gotta be very careful to calculate. Let's say, let's take out our calculator here. Okay, so in this case, I have 1.8. So 1800 in terms of gigabytes, let's divide by 240 for each plot. We can take up to 7 plots. So let's leave a little bit of free space. We wouldn't want to overload it 8 plots. So in this case, for 2 terabyte NVMe drive, the maximum number of concurrent plots I can probably take is 7, right? Maximum concurrent with start early, that means by which concurrent plot can the next one start earlier. If you need more details about this setting, you might want to read the file. Stagger minutes, this is what's the minute stagger to start the next plot, and so on. Okay, temporary destination sync, and so on. Okay, so I'm not going to go into too much details about the settings here, because the main settings are the temp drives as well as the chia directory, which is one on top here. Okay, the chia location as well as the temp drive. So those are the main settings. So the other settings, you can play around with them. So based on your configurations, you might want to adjust and see which one is the most efficient, the fastest way to get as many plots as possible per day for you. So generally, all you need is just one set of instructions here. They provided a second set here, whereby you can actually queue up multiple drive names in your temp directory, as well as your temp2, as well as your destination directory. So how this works is that, for example, let's say my temp directory is on the Y drive and my temp2 directory is on J. So in the case whereby my Y drive is full, it will go into J, and if J drive is full, it will go into K. So once the temporary plotting is complete, phase 4 is complete, it goes into the destination drives. The first drive you will check is the J drive, and if J drive is full, then you go to the next drive, which is the K drive. So in the case whereby you have, let's say, a network access storage, or you just happen to have many hard disks or many temporary SSDs in your plotting system, you might want to set the whole list of your directories here so that everything is fully automated. Then you don't need to change this configuration file every time. Okay, so there are two sets here. So the one which you do not want to use, you can just delete them. So if I'm using the second one, I'll just delete the first one. If you're using the first one, you can just delete the second set. Otherwise, you can leave the second set here as well. My experience is that because these settings don't correspond to my personal computer, because my personal computer doesn't have a J or K drive or Y drives, it doesn't really affect. Okay, so once you're done with that, you will want to save as, right? You want to save as config.yaml, right? Okay, in my case, because I already have my config.yaml file and I do not want to replace it while my plotting manager is running, so I'm going to click no. But in your case, if you're the first time installing it, you will not have this config.yaml file yet. So, and another thing, make sure that it is not saved as a text document. Save as type, you need to select to all files and then config.yaml and save. But in my case, I do not want to replace my config file, so I'm going to click no. But in your case, you should not have that pop up, and you should be able to successfully save it. Okay, so once that is done, configuration is done. All right, so we're back here. So how do we actually run the plotting manager? So in order to run the manager, let's go back to our command prompt, which here. So if we remember here earlier, we had activated the scripts here, right? We had venv scripts activate, and we had installed our requirements, right? So now we have configured our config file, and now let's start the Python manager, right? So let's just copy these instructions. Make sure that in this case, you still see the bracket venv here, and this is the address of your plot manager folder. Then you just need to paste python space manager.py space start and start. Okay, so in my case, because my manager is already running, you will see that manager is already running. But in your case, if it's the first time you're starting it up, it should run. And in order to view the stats, so you will have to copy this instruction, python space manager.py space view, and you can press enter, and you will see the stats displayed here. All right. Okay, let me expand it. Yep. So you can open multiple view windows. It doesn't really affect. So there's no compromises to how your software is running. So multiple windows, and you can display them. So you can close the windows anytime, and they will not affect the plotting processes running in the background. Because this is a command line interface. So the good thing about this is if you happen to close your graphical user interface, you will only stop the farming, but you should not stop the plotting process, right? Okay, in this case, I'm not synced. Okay, it's okay. So let's close this and yeah, just have one. Okay, so all right. So maybe a little bit explanation about this. So the good thing about Python Manager is other than this ease of being able to monitor your progress of your plots, this program is what we call a stateless program, which means that once you have started your plots and you have to close the Python Manager, you can stop your Python Manager by you can actually stop your Python Manager by going to your Chia Plot Manager folder and having python manager.py stop. So if you press enter here, you will stop the Python Manager software, but it does not stop the processes that's running in the background, right? So for example, if your Python Manager view here, if you suddenly couldn't see the screen, just need to press enter and you will get back to this, right? So these processes are already running in the background. So even if I stop my Python Manager, the plotting process still goes on. So in the case of emergencies, let's say your system crashed or you have to restart your system and you want to cancel all the plots that is already in progress, how you're going to cancel them is if you see the PID number here, you will have to go to Windows Task Manager in order to stop the processes. So let's say we'll go to Windows Task Manager here, right? And once you're in Task Manager, you can go to the Details tab and you can see there's a PID number here. So let's sort by descending PID number. And you can see that there are certain PID numbers here. So let's say if I want to stop this one, 23648. Right, then let's look for 23648. Where is it? Yeah, you can see here. So you can see here PID number 23648 is a process that is run by chia.exe. And you can see there's small letter C, that means it's the command line interface. So in order to stop this, you will have to select this and click End Task. Then you will be manually stopping that particular plot. Okay, so other than this, there's no other way of stopping the plotting process. Because for the command line interface, you have to go into Task Manager Details tab, search their PID number, and ending them one by one. Okay, so that is about it. Anything else that we want to go through? What we should do is to have a shortcut of your commands that you're going to use, which is here, right? The shortcut of the commands that you're going to use for running the Python Manager every time you start up your Windows or your Ubuntu PC. For example, you're starting it up and you want to access, you already installed the Plotter Manager, but you want to run it. So there are certain lists of commands that you can actually list down on like a notepad, then you can go through them pretty quickly. So in this case, first one is you need to open up command prompt or PowerShell. So for example, let's just exit. Let's show you how to start. So you can create this list yourself. Just copy the certain list of commands from the GitHub and put it into your own notepad so that it makes it easy for you to start up the program here. Okay, where is my notepad? Right. Yep. So first thing is we need to either open up command prompt or PowerShell. So PowerShell will work as well. Okay. Personally, I prefer command prompt. So let's CMD. So you can just go to click on the Windows logo, type CMD, and command prompt will show up, right? So press enter on that and you run the command prompt. So you want to go into the folder of your Chia Plot Manager. So I have it very conveniently here, cd, this is my folder address. Just paste, go into that. And you want to activate the scripts. So this is the command venv/script/activate. So you want to paste it there and it's activated. So activate virtual environment to return every single time you open a new window. Yeah, that's correct. So I want to start the Python manager. So you just highlight Python manager.py and start. Okay. In my case, my Python manager is already running, and you want to open Python manager view. So open up the view, press enter, takes a while, and yes, loaded. Okay. Yep. So this makes life a lot easier. If every time you close the Python manager window, you want to start it up, this is the process that you have to go through. And credits to Swar from developing this open source plot manager software. So if you would like to support him, you can, I believe he has donation links here. You can either send him some chia, which most of us probably don't have at this point of time. You can donate some ETH to him, donate some BTC, or you can donate to his PayPal to support this good man here who has come up with this software. Really good. Okay, anything else would I like to cover? I think that's about it. So thank you very much for watching. I hope this helps anyone at all who is looking to install and use this plot manager. I hope it helps you, and we'll see you next time.